listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Cali Estes and Master Coach Jenny Fontana, founders of the Life Coach Method. Each one of our uplifting and deep dive episodes is geared to help you tackle the things that hold you back from having the most magnificent life you deserve. Sit back, relax, and prepare to be coached.
Okay. So what does that look like in the workplace? Men versus women. Who's more of a bully? What do you think?
I would say different types of bullying. I've learned, I've experienced. Male bullying is, as a boss, is very different than what I've experienced as having a female boss.
I would agree to that. And I think the stigma around being a female boss comes with a lot more derogatory terms than a male, meaning if a male is screaming in his office at a worker, it's kind of like, oh, he's exerting his dominant alpha state. But if a woman is screaming at someone in her office, it's like, oh my goodness, she's a Karen. She's a bitch. No one likes her. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. And I think the two different types of bitch that I would go with as far as female bosses go would be one that's just straight up aggressive, basically in your face. This is how things are going to go. And I don't really care about what your feelings are. If, you're sitting there crying while you're taking notes, as long as you're taking notes, I could give, a rip. The other one is passive aggressive, which will be semi-rude to you and maybe go, maybe it's not such a good idea for you to leave at 6. You should probably stay till at least 6:30, kind of thing every day, which I find more toxic than the aggressive bully boss, because at least you know where they stand. The other one, you get a grounding on.
If you've seen The Office, you've seen the passive aggressive. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to come in on Saturday. I'm going to need you.
Space. Yes.
Office Space. Yes.
Yes.
I need you on Saturday.
I'm just over here like, can I have my stapler? Just give me my stapler.
Exactly. So neither of those are good leadership styles. Aggressive, I need what I want what I want, I need it now, versus passive aggressive, I'm going to make you feel bad to get what I want. Both of those don't know how to lead. A good leader knows how to lead with putting the person first, putting the worker in front of the situation with, I really need your help. Can you do this? Can you come in on Saturday? Can you stay late? How can you best, benefit the team? And also gives them something in return. So leadership is tough because we don't learn this in high school. We don't learn this in college. Unless you're specifically going, to college for leadership or some sort of business, this is not something we teach. We should teach it, but we don't. Which then bleeds into, having somebody that starts off, for example, as a therapist in addiction, and because this is how we do it, you're a therapist who went to school, and all of a sudden you're a program director, and then you're the clinical director. You have zero leadership skill at all because you've never taken a leadership class, and you've probably never had a leadership role. And then they put a DO in that was a clinician, and it's a disaster because they don't know how to lead. They want to therapize everybody. You come in the office and say something and like, oh my goodness, is that how you feel? Let's sit and talk about it. That's great, but that's not going to finance our bottom line in business.
Right. And I think that, in general, regardless if it's male, female, bully, non-bully, I think the definition, of whether it's a boss or a leader can make or break the team. So there's a good picture. I think Mike actually has it outside of his office, I think somewhere. The boss is in the wagon with all the team pulling him. The team, the leader is out there grabbing the wagon with the rest of his team, and everybody's heading uphill together, pulling just the weight of the wagon. So I agree. I think sometimes bullying from a boss comes because they don't know how to work in a leadership role. They go from having peers to having employees, staff, or a team underneath them that they don't have to supervise.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think a big part of that too, especially in my industry, it starts off with recovering addict. You take a
Hmm.
recovering addict with a high school education, and next thing you know, they're running a team of people. They don't have the skill set. And then, stuff goes wrong and they fire them and just hire a new one. It's like people are expendable. So you see that in restaurant, you see that in retail, you see that in my industry, especially mental health and addiction. They don't train anybody. They don't want to train you. They expect you to show up, do a job, and then they promote from within and act like it's a big gift with no new training. So yeah, you end up having a bully as boss. Case in point, when I worked for a treatment center down here in Fort Lauderdale, the owner was a complete asshole. And he had a high school education. His wife was a finance person. So he pulled up in his Bugatti and she pulled up in her Mercedes. And the running joke was, how many pairs of red bottom shoes did she have? He was
Mm.
sleeping with one of the staff. She was running around making money. And here I was with a master's degree working on a PhD making $42,000 a year, barely
Hmm.
paying my rent. And he would have meltdowns. He would have outbursts. And one outburst came at me. And he called me in his office, and I had sent somebody to a halfway house that apparently wasn't approved. And he said, "Did you get the email?" And I don't have an email. No. He said, "You should know who we don't send to." Okay, I referred a client that I thought was a clinically appropriate to a clinically appropriate facility, which is what I'm supposed to do legally. And he said, "We don't do business with them." And he picked a notebook up and heaved it at my head. And I looked at him and I said, "I don't have your email, and you're screaming at me, screaming, like his face is beet red, screaming at me, and that's not appropriate." And I was very calm about it. And he said, "The only reason you can live in Miami, which is expensive, is because I give you a job. I pay your rent. I allow you to work for me." And the first thought in my head was, we're going to fix that. So I looked at him and I said, "I have two words for you." And he goes, "What? Fuck me?" I said, "No, no, I quit." And he goes, "You can't quit." I said, "I can quit." And I just did. He goes, "You can't. I need you." I said, "Oh, whoa, whoa. A minute ago, you didn't need me. And the only reason I was here is basically because you felt sorry for me because I had to pay my rent in Miami. So good luck with your company." And I packed my stuff and he sent his wife in. And I said, "I have nothing to say to you. Nothing." And then he sent in the clinical director. "I have nothing to say to you either." And I packed my stuff and I left. And on my way out, I poked my head in and I said to him, "I can make more money than you. I have the ability to make more money than you and scale a company. I don't need you. You need me. Remember that." And I left. And I had two friends that still worked there. And one called me and said, every therapist quit that he hired within a week because nobody would put up with the screaming, the yelling, and the meltdowns that this guy was having with staff. It's not appropriate. But he thought, "I own the company. I'll do what I want."
Hmm.
But he couldn't get good help because of the bully
Right.
boss.
But yet he needed the good help because he did not have all the skill set to do all the pieces of his own company he needed done.
Correct. And he thought that he could just do what he wanted whenever he wanted, and people would accept that. Because what else are you going to do? You can't tell the owner of the company, "I don't like the way you're treating me."
Yeah, that's really hard. He thinks that he has the ability to treat, talk, act any way just because his name's on the company.
Exactly. And he thinks that because he's in recovery and all these other people are in recovery, he's giving them a service by giving them a job when other people won't hire them.
Yeah, and I had the opposite experience with male bullying of a different nature, where you would be bombed with compliments, thinking that you are more valued or more needed than maybe the next staff person, only to have it turn into then they think they have the right to sexually harass you. And that's where it was taken on my end, where it was emotional manipulation, um, and kind of bullying of the sort. Well, you know, you do such a good job, manipulating you into thinking that you're needed more than uh, someone else, only for that to become the narrative.
And that's interesting. That's a narcissistic love bomb trait. So
Hmm.
usually bosses that do that, they're usually men. They're
And they're
usually
the highest level. That was the general manager of the restaurant that thought he had the power and the look and all the things that go with it to manipulate staff.
let me guess, he was married?
Yes.
Yep. So that's my target market, by the way, in addiction. So these guys have everything. They have a wife, they have kids. He probably had kids, a dog, a house, all those things. He's attained them. He doesn't look at that as a partner and his kids as his kids. He looks at that as objects. My wife is a thing. My kids are a thing. My job is a thing. And he looks at people as expendable objects. You are
Hmm.
nothing but an object. And if you're not interested, he's going to hit on the next 10 other women. His odds are 2 out of 10 will take him up on his offer. Maybe 3 out of 10 if he's really cute. So he looks at it like they owe me. They want me. I'm king of the kingdom. And if you say no to him, your life at work becomes miserable. You'll get the
Right.
crappy shift. You'll get
Yep.
not on the schedule. You'll get all the things against you because you didn't do what was required by the narcissistic boss.
Hmm.
So the best recourse of action when you have one of those is to get all the workers together to go
And
to HR.
that's exactly what we did.
Because if it's one, then it's he said, she said. But if
Right.
he has offended multiple people in that
Hmm.
office environment or work environment, then it's like, well, there's no way 3 women, 4 women, 5 women have had the same experience with this guy independently of each other. That's not possible.
Right.
So, what can you do with a bully boss? Oh boy. What are the things? First thing you can do is start your sentences with I feel, because nobody can tell you your feelings are wrong. They can tell you did a shitty job, but they can't tell you your feeling is wrong. So you say, I feel X when you Y. I feel uncomfortable when you talk about sex at work. Simple.
Hmm.
I feel uncomfortable. That's not something he can tell you to feel or take away. Now, that's the first step. So use I feel sentences. The second step is document the behavior. Every time it happens, you write it down, where you are, exactly what was said. You could even record it on your phone. Most states have a one-party record. Now, legally, some states have a two-party record. So, like in Florida, I have to ask somebody, can I record you? But I can record it and show it to HR because it's confidential. So
Hmm.
those are things you can do. In New York, it's one person. You only have to have one person consent. So it just depends by the state. But you want to jot it down, write it down, record it. And of course, number 3, go to HR with evidence. It's
Hmm.
very difficult to go to HR and say, well, he called me a this or did this. Then it's a slap on the wrist. But if you have evidence that something happened or that you were approached or what have you, HR has a duty to investigate it by law because they're impartial. They don't care if you're there. They don't care if he's there. Their job is independent of you and him. Their job
That's
is to,
the hope.
yes,
Let's
that
say
is your
that's the
hope.
hope. Yes.
That
I
is your
think
hope.
certain companies tend to have their big executives kind of be the ones that the HR is more willing to save over the tiny office clerk, that runs in and out of the office.
Correct. But if you have enough people or have enough evidence, for
Right.
example, um, not, drudging stuff up, but if you remember Mr. Wiener and his wiener,
Yes.
sending pictures of his wiener, that
Mhm.
ruined him. And it
Mhm.
was evidence. If she would have said, well, he sent me a dick pic, okay, great. Where's the evidence? Well, I don't have it. That's it.
Right.
He said, she said. But she was able to say, he's sending me inappropriate photos,
Mhm.
requesting inappropriate action, and I'm uncomfortable. And I told him I was uncomfortable, and he did it anyway. Now you have evidence. So now, with compelling evidence, if HR isn't going to do anything, you have another step. You can go to the police, you can go to the media. If you have a big boss, they don't want that in the press.
Right.
So if you're not getting the help you need, you can escalate it. Now, I'm not saying try to trap your boss into, pretending to bully you or sexually harass you so you can make money. I'm not saying that by any means. But I'm saying if you are offended and bothered by something and you have said, hey, I feel uncomfortable, because sometimes people don't know that their off color comments are offensive.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize it sometimes. So if you bring it to their attention, that's your first
It
step.
may end it. That might be the end of it right there, as soon as they realize. Yeah.
Correct. Because some of the older men I've noticed, back in the 60s and 70s, it was a different work environment for women. You know, a woman would walk by the guy's desk and she was a secretary. She wasn't a CEO back then. And he would smack her on the ass and say, nice outfit, in between smoking a Pall Mall. That was acceptable. Now it's not so much, but some of those
It shouldn't have
men,
been acceptable back then, but it was. It was allowed, I should say. It shouldn't have been.
it was culturally appropriate in that time period. But now it's not. So some of those men didn't get the memo of, hey, we're not going to do this. Or their fathers did that. And they grew up seeing that, and that's who they became.
And on the flip side, I think that, like you started at the beginning saying, I think that female bosses often automatically get a bad rap as tending to be too aggressive or a bitch just because they're being assertive and they may have a male team that is, not performing at their level. So they're the lead, they're the boss, they're the supervisor, they're the owner of a company, and they are trying to rally the respect that they deserve. And the only way to do that comes across as, aggressive, when it's just them asserting what needs to be done, or they won't have their team. They'll lose the team.
Well, that happens in general everyday stuff. I mean, if you see, for example, I mean, every woman complaining is now Karen. Every
Mm-hmm.
video is, oh my God, she's such a Karen, even if it's warranted. I
Right.
saw a video of a woman who went in to a fast food restaurant, ordered a burger and got a chicken sandwich. And she's at the counter going, I ordered a burger, I got a chicken sandwich. Can you, change this out? And the person videoing it wanted likes and views. And
Right.
she's back there calling her a Karen and a bitch and a this and a that. That's kind of what our culture's gotten into, is that every woman who says a word or stands up for herself, even if it's assertive and not aggressive, is now a Karen.
Right.
And that's a problem, because that's not accurate. And then you look at men, if it's a guy going in complaining about the burger, it's like, yeah, get him. Tell him, you paid for that. You deserve what you ordered. It's like men get a hall pass.
Mm-hmm.
You get a hall pass for saying, this is what I paid for and this is what I got. And the same in business. Men that, throw their weight around and say, I want this done, I need it done now, here's what I need. It's like, okay, he's goal oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it ends in a handshake.
Yep. And women, it's like, oh, she's bitchy. Is she, is it her time of the month? Instantly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's such a double standard when it comes to women in business and empowered women. It's like, oh, she's bitchy because she expects us to do this. And it's not necessarily men who say it, it's women who say it to other women,
Mm-hmm.
because they're not used to that level of authority.
Well, and I think women in the employee environment may want to feel like they can connect to their boss, and may want to feel a friendship, or, like just to be liked. And that doesn't mean that your boss is being a bully just because you guys don't go for coffee every Friday. That you're there to do a job. You're not there to necessarily make friends. Yes, it is, I think, appropriate to always be respectful back and forth, but I don't think you necessarily have to end up with a best friend, in your work environment.
I was always the person at work that went to work and came home.
Mm-hmm.
And no one really knew anything about me, because I was like, work is for work, play is for play. I don't want to be friends with the people from work because I really don't want them in my life. It's a job, And my husband's the opposite. He'd be like, oh my God, we're going out with so-and-so. I'm like, who is so-and-so? Oh, he's
Mm-hmm.
the such and such on this, and he's the such and such on that. And we're going out with the band. It's exhausting, because I'm like, who are these people? and he works with all of them. And I was never like that. I was always like, I'm going to work. I don't want to talk to you outside of work. I don't care about your kids. I don't care about your family. I'm here to do a job and be left alone. And I was always like the outsider. And then I got promoted to director, and everyone was like, oh boy, now I have to know about their lives. I have to know about your kids and your issues and your whatnot, because here I am, I'm supposed to care. But
Right.
the problem is, in business, I don't care. I have a bottom line, and I'm tasked with meeting a bottom line and meeting quota and getting all this stuff done. And you're having a meltdown because your kid is sick. I've got to, be able to handle all of that, peruse all of that, and still come across as gentle and caring while I'm meeting my bottom line and my superior.
Mhm. And
So
I'm on the
it's
other end of the spectrum where I would be like, let's, let everybody stay home because they all have sick kids and nobody shows up to work because you want to you want to feel for the other person, as a mom, as a wife, as a woman, that you feel like I want to help meet your needs to make your life easier. And then it could be at the detriment of the company's day,
and that's a whole nother conversation. It was so interesting. So there was a post on one of the forums I'm in on Facebook, and the woman wrote, I hate my job because I have a sick kid. I need to stay home today, and they expect me to work from home. They don't understand I'm a mom first. And I chimed in and I said, well, I'm a company owner. If you worked for me and you expect to be paid, I expect you to work. And I got slammed from all these moms. And work is not everything, and there's kids. And I said, okay, well, if mom is your primary duty, then that needs to be your focus. If work is your secondary duty, I will fire you because work is my primary duty. And it
Mhm.
was kind of like this, well, you're a bitch because you don't believe in family first. As a company owner, no, my family is my company. That's my baby. And people don't see that. They don't see that. They say, well, I just work for you. It's just a job. Okay, well, if you
Mhm.
think it's just a job, I don't want you working for me. Would you let me babysit your kids if I said it's just a job and I'm playing on Facebook?
Mhm.
No, right? So I switched that question around. Would you hire a nanny that's just there to collect the money and doesn't care about your kids? The answer is no.
Right.
So why would I
Right.
hire you when you don't care about my baby, my company, and you're more concerned about your sick child than my baby, which you're supposed to be here doing? And when I pitched it that way, a couple people went, well, I never thought about that. And that's exactly what it is. You view other people's babies, which is their company, as a job, like you have to do to support your family. So again,
Mhm.
if your mentality is that, I don't want you in my company. You're not putting my baby first. So everyone I have hired, and this will probably get my listeners in an uproar, I make them all watch Devil Wears Prada because that is her baby,
Mhm.
and it's 24/7. And there are people with issues, and she says, not my problem, because it's not my problem. It's your problem. Because if your family is primary and your job is secondary, why are you working for me? That's my question. So that makes me a bitchy boss, doesn't it? That makes me a bully boss because I'm not giving you what you want. But the reality is that's not a bully question. That's not a bully boss. And people misinterpret that because they don't put their priority when they're at work with work. Their priority is still with their kids,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
If you're working and we're working and we're doing stuff, and you get you're teaching nutrition for the Addictions Academy, and it's 1 o'clock and you get a call that one of your kids has an emergency, you're not going to finish that class. You're going to stop, take care of the kid, I would assume.
Well, it depends. It depends on how emergency, how big of an emergency that is. But yeah, I mean, I think in anything there's also a fine line, a balance of that needs to be reached. Of course, because you have people with families, and you have mothers, and you have um, people. It's a different situation where everybody's trying to do all the things. I think this goes back to burnout. So you're trying to be all things to all people all the time, and then you have to figure out when you're in one hat, when you're in a role wearing a hat, what's that priority, what's that focus, and stick with that in that real time. But that you do have a boss that's caring enough that when those emergencies, which are few and far between, come up, and that's the key. It can't be, oh, my kid has a runny nose, I got to go run and get a tissue for them. It's when the few and far between true emergencies come that you feel you can depend on your boss to say, I've got you, handle it, and I'll see you when you get back here.
Exactly. So you have to find the right job that you fit into.
Right.
And you always will think you have a bully boss if your priorities are different than their priorities. Because when you're at work and you're getting paid, you're supposed to be here. You know, your mind is to be here. So if you're dealing with crap at home, your mind's not here. It's just not.
Right.
And that is key to being able to work together and not have a bully boss. I mean, there still are bully bosses out there that even though you're present here, they're still not happy.
Right.
They're never going to be happy.
Their issue, not yours, of course.
Exactly. So there you go. Another great episode at Unpause Your Life and how to deal with bully bosses. We gave you some tips and tricks on what to do on your drive home or sitting in the tub or riding the Peloton, whatever it is you're doing while you're listening, because we knew you're listening. We can see it. Come back again for some more fun on our next topic.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to Unpause Your Life. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Unpause Your Life with Dr. Cali Estes and Master Coach Jenny Fontana. Head over to www.thelifecoachmethod.com to learn more about coaching yourself and how to become a master coach.